Dolphins band, look who's back! I just came out of my darkness retreat with Aaron Rodgers, guys. He kidnapped me. I've been stuck in purgatory for weeks, but I'm back. The Fins Bandwagon is back, and guess what? I have a new co-host. He's a phenomenal guy. I've been spending great time with him on Friday nights on Dolphins Draft Talk and On the Clock. Michael Vogel, welcome to the Fins Bandwagon, buddy.
Appreciate it, man. Ready to.
We're going to have a lot of fun on this show.
Let's rock and roll, baby.
We only talk positive stuff, and then whenever someone talks something negative, we pull them back in. We make fun of everybody. And just before our show, there was a great show, Real Talk, Fins Talk. We always grab all their negative comments and we turn them into positive on this side of the show. We have a lot of fun. We like to rip all the people on the network. That's what we do.
Well,
we're like Fox News. We're the opinion show. What do you want from me? So thank you for joining the bandwagon. We're going to have a lot of fun. Today, I think what's going to be great, guys, is we're going to get to learn a little bit about Michael, because I know on the previous shows that we do on Friday nights, which is phenomenal, guys. Don't forget to watch that as well. We never get to realize where your fandom came from, why you're a fan of the Miami Dolphins. You have a great knowledge of the draft, and you have a great knowledge of the prospects, but it would be important to do that. Before we do that, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. We have amazing content going on the show, but just keep going with it, guys. So, Michael, I just take a moment to introduce yourself to the Fins Talk Sports Network from your fandom of the Dolphins when you became a Dolphins fan. As you can see in your Twitter handle, you're Mark72. You're a big Fins fan. So give us your history on why you became a Dolphins fan, how long you've been a Dolphins fan, who your favorite player growing up was. Just give us the whole spiel.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Indiana and started out as a massive Bears fan. One of my fondest memories was the Green Bay Packers-Chicago Bears game where the Packers had a hit list on their towels and knocked out all the quarterbacks, and Walter Payton came in and played quarterback.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like this massive Walter Payton fan. And like when they made it to the Super Bowl and they gave the ball to Fridge and he scored and not Payton, I was pissed. I was done with the Bears. I was mad. And so I went on the prowl for a new team and happened to catch the Dolphins playing in the old Orange Bowl with Marino and Shula. And kind of fell in love with it. And then just kind of from there. So, everybody said, why are you not a Colts fan? Well, they weren't really there yet and established. They were still on the look for that stud quarterback. So my college roommate, or my best friend in college, took me to a couple of Colts Dolphins games, and seeing Marino in person was really cool. Yeah. And that it's kind of been going that way ever since. Then I moved out to North Carolina, and everyone's like, why aren't you a Carolina Panthers fan? Well, because Dan Marino played for the Dolphins, and that's where it all started. So
he's been your fandom for the last 30 years.
Yep. And then when he retired, and Ricky Williams came over, then you kind of fall in love with Ricky Williams and pissed off because they don't get an actual quarterback for Ricky Williams. So
what was wrong with Jay Fiedler?
He wasn't Dan Marino, that's for sure.
No, of course not. He won us our last playoff game. That's the positive fact.
Right? Very positive, very positive.
And who did he beat? Do you remember who they beat? The Colts.
Oh, yeah. I do remember Marino's his last game where they got smashed by the Jags?
Oh, Jesus. 65-7 or something like that?
Yeah, something crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm still a Dolphins fan to this day. That's the positive spin there.
Yeah, there you go. And then over the years, in the last decade or so, who were players you were mainly focused on? Were you, since we had such a stout defense, were you still a big fan of the offense, or were you learning towards the defense?
You immediately fell in love with Zach Taylor and Jason. Zach Thomas and Jason.
We Taylor. All do that. By the way, that's the jinx of being on this network. Yeah. We all suffer from the Bobby screw up name syndrome. Yeah. So don't worry about that. You'll get a few of those out there.
Yeah, it was. You fell in love with those guys. OJ McDuffie. Then of course the quarterbacks like Cleo Lemon.
Oh Jesus!
It's hard not to.
The 1-15. Oh
yeah, the 1-15.
Camarillo. Yeah, my God.
I was at a store. Coming back from, I think, Raleigh, North Carolina, when they were playing Baltimore, and they came back and beat Baltimore for that first one. I can remember. Isn't it crazy, like how you can remember these? Like,
we all know where we were when, right?
Yeah,
there are a few moments like that.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure. Like we all know. Like I'm sure you remember where you were during the Miami Miracle. I know exactly what I was doing.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! Like I remember when my house, I think the house shook. I was like,
oh yeah,
I never turn off the game, even if there's 5 seconds
yeah.
left. I never turn it off.
Right.
So
yeah, you hooping and hollering and
yeah,
hoping there's nobody else in the house to ruin your
have you
excitement.
gotten your kids into it, or they're not at their age, or do you?
So my son is 10 and hates football with a passion right now.
What's the passion?
I mean, he's into like plushies and Pokemon, and he wants to be like a animator and stuff like that. He's not a big sports guy, but that's fine. My daughter she's more interested in football. And with me being a big Notre Dame fan, I watch a lot of Notre Dame games, and she was here with me one night and cuddled up next to me. And it's like, Dad, I want you to teach me about football. And I was like, oh, yes, finally.
Well, we have the Dolphins and Notre Dame have a few things in common: changing of coaches, inconsistency, highs and lows.
I just feel like
you're the reason. So are you the guy who drafted Liam Eichenberg?
I wasn't real sure how he was going to turn out, but it hasn't.
What's up, Steve?
It hasn't been for the positive quite yet. So
yeah. But what has kept your? Are you just a pure loyalist Dolphins fan, or have you had moments where you said enough is enough because we haven't won a playoff game in 20 odd years? Like, what keeps your fandom going?
I tell you, it was really difficult during the Colts years where they were really good because my dad was a Colts fan and my brother-in-law was a Colts fan, and you need to be a Colts fan because the Dolphins suck ass and they're never gonna be good. But I never waver. I'm a diehard through and through, even with Notre Dame. I mean, those Charlie Weiss years, I was like, oh Lord, maybe I need to go find a new team. But they've stuck with me. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Anthony, yes, we 100% do. This is all welcome. Today we're going to do our first show with Michael, but definitely next week when we have more content and a lot of things going on, we'll definitely bring you guys on. We'll ask Bobby to drop the link, and you can definitely jump on, give any ideas. Like I said, you can reach out to me at Fins Pods, reach out to FinsFan72 Michael on Twitter. We're glad to have you on the show, 100%. One question he did have that we can go through, because we always like to refer to the comments and the questions, and we'll keep going. Yep. The question I've been sharing Aaron Rodgers since he came into the league, because Dolphins have had mediocre quarterbacks like my whole life, Michael. Yeah, you want to know what it is? We've had inconsistent quarterbacks, but you want to know what? The one thing I've learned, especially this year, where we did have some ups with the quarterback, and we'll get into that because I want to get your feedback on the overall team, and that's what I want to focus on today. Not how many super elite quarterbacks are in this league, right? Like that's the one thing we do. There's the super elite. There's the really good, and then there's the game managers, and there are the ones who are just looking to tank. There's really that level. Like there's the upper echelon, and sometimes people have moments of being great, but there's always going to be there's highs and lows. Right. I'd like to. So one thing I want to do with you today is because you never really focused on this past season. What were your expectations heading into the season when all the signings took place and it seemed like they were going all in? And then we'll focus on the specific positions and what you felt was great about it. And what was your overall expectations heading into the season? And did it meet your expectations at the end of the season based on everything that took place? So give us your overall experience of last season, since we haven't been able to hear from you about it.
For me, I was cautiously optimistic, especially with Mike McDaniel coming in as a new coach who...
did you want a new coach?
I did.
You wanted a rookie coach, or you wanted an experienced coach?
I really like what San Francisco's done, so I was kind of interested in that. But, there were other names floating around in the experienced coach field that you're like, oh, that might be a good get. But I just felt like we needed an offensive-minded coach to kind of work with Tua and see what he could do with an offensive-minded coach. So I was hoping playoffs. I definitely knew we would be better than the Jets. And you never know with New England now with, what they've got going on. But I felt like Miami's had their number the last couple.
Tua has their number.
Tua's got their number.
Got his number. That's the one the team he doesn't struggle against.
So I was excited when we won, but it was hard, man. When you win 3, you lose 3. You win 5, you lose 5. And it was like, so when even with Skylar Thompson at the last game of the year, I geeked out a little bit. We haven't, because you're in the playoffs now with a third string quarterback that, when the old Miami Dolphins would have just crumbled, the Gase Dolphins would have crumbled, not even gotten in. So, and I understand that we went to the playoffs his first year too, but I was okay. And then the Bills came out or when we played the Bills and how competitive we were, that for me was really exciting. And I know there were some issues with the coaching and stuff in the game that probably cost us the game, but still to be able to get to that. And I feel like, under Flores, we just got destroyed by Buffalo.
Yeah.
And so I was very interested to see how we were going to do against Buffalo this year. And then we beat them in South Florida. And then we went up to Buffalo and almost beat them there with Tua. And then to, go into the playoffs and with a third string quarterback and pretty much the only quarterback we had at that point in time, to come that close was exciting and kind of opens you up for, a positive future going forward. Because I really feel like, with Fangio coming in, I think that he's going to be a good piece for Mike McDaniel to be able to bounce stuff off of and kind of show him what he learned as being a head coach that will help him in those situations that you're not so fond of.
Me? Oh, yeah. You'll get used to me. But I'll tell you, the one thing I think that a lot of the people in the comments, Thirsty, Steve, Bobby, one thing that was amazing about this season, and I think what allowed us, and I think you're gonna experience it now that you're part of the network and now you're full throttle into the network, being on a couple of shows. The last couple of years, I think we could all attest to the fact that we were alone in our fandom. You had Twitter, you had your people you could speak to once in a while. When you have a place to come in and vent, engage, talk analytically, voice your opinion, but then also get feedback, different perspective. It's like Dolphins therapy. Like we have this network to allow us to turn things around and really get everything off our chest. Like those post-game shows. Thanks, John. I have another one coming. I have a few cool. By the way, I have a Zach Thomas one coming, and I'm going to show you. If you guys, I'll drop you a link on where you can find this stuff. It's amazing stuff. Maybe the network will spring for one day.
There you go.
We'll spring up for you guys. Before next season, I'll spring you guys on. But no, it's really a place for therapy, like really to engage yourself, really vent, bring out your different perspective. It allows you to really learn. Like I said and which has been amazing for me being on Dolphins on the Clock, is the reason I've been able to join that show, because Bobby knows my experience was not with the draft, was because I literally caught an episode last year. I got pulled into the network just by watching the show, and then Bobby asked anyone want to come to the show, and it just became a great thing. But it was an episode of Fins Talk Overtime with Brett and Bobby, and they were analyzing things, and they were talking about the scene, how Brett had gone to the Senior Bowl, and I just really caught to a liking of it, and it just sucked me into all of it. So anything football related it sucked me in, and that's what's fun about this, is that you're going to love it, right? You're just going to love the therapy of it. But no, so in the end, do you feel like this season was a step in the right direction, or did you leave with a sour taste in your mouth?
No, I felt like it was a step in the right direction. Now, obviously, it depends on, what we do in free agency and the kind of draft, are we able to draft guys that are going to fill the needs, in the draft. So I do feel it was positive, although, you always want to win that first playoff game. It's been such a drought, but I mean, I think getting there was a start. And now, I think year 2 is going to tell a lot more. If we have the same, I will be disappointed if we have the same kind of outcome, the 9-8 type year or whatever. Well, it seems like we always are stuck in kind of that mid-level tier.
Well, the breaking news for me today, which is actually people were surprised. Like Bobby had said this at the beginning of the year. The number one song, like the biggest additions to last year weren't necessarily the players. It was the coaching staff, like the redevelopment of the coaching staff, finishing top 6 in offense and all that.
Yeah.
The breaking news today, which was a very big difference for them, is Leslie Frazier is taking a year off.
Yes.
So Buffalo did not end the season well.
No,
they are going to lose people on defense. They're not going to have the same weapons. I think you realized last year they did not have a running game either. And now to lose part of your defense, whether you might be able to re-sign Edmonds, but you might lose Poyer and you might lose other elements, and then to lose your defensive coach, to bring in someone and just drop it in the bucket, I don't think it's going to be the same. Like, I don't think the team was the same with Dorsey than they were with Dayball. I think they lost a step or two without Dayball.
I completely agree. I felt like Dayball was kind of the magic hand, the Oz.
Yeah,
the wizard
behind Josh Allen.
Yeah, exactly.
He had the most interceptions last year. If you recall, he had the most interceptions in the league last year. There's a reason why. So for me, like, next year is actually a window for us that now we've actually added the experienced head coach. And my cousin, who sometimes watches the podcast, made fun of me, and then we're going to go through the different elements. I once said the Fangio for me is not only going to be a benefit to the defense. It was funny that he did it where he was signed, because he talked about how he was going to be helping the offense. He is going to be a phenomenal coach for the offense, because his scheme, if you can figure out his scheme and his defense from the offensive side of the ball during OTAs and you're going to be able to beat any defense, because those defenses are a lot of the defenses in the NFL, including they all started with Brandon Staley. That's where everyone thought, oh my God, this is downhill. The San Francisco game was just a screw up game. It was just a mess of a game. But the San Francisco game, the Chargers game was where it showed that we couldn't adjust to very strong defenses up down the field. That's a Vic Fangio type of defense. And now we have the man who can do it, right?
Right.
Now we have the man who can teach us that.
And they'll see it. And they'll see it. Yeah, they'll see it every day in practice.
Exactly.
So, and him being able to work out his wrinkles of the new stuff that he kind of has drawn up in the past, and seeing how that plays out.
Because if you look what happened during the Super Bowl, I believe that he helped the offense. The offense wasn't the reason why the Eagles lost. It was their defense who couldn't get pressure. Yeah. It was the Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick had 19 sacks this year. Where was his sacks this year? They couldn't pressure Mahomes for his life. All they had to do was copy what happened against Tampa. I know what Tampa did against them. Couldn't do it. So overall, this is the big. Let's talk about the offense, and then we're going to go to different elements. The big most polarizing figure, as you know, we talk about it. We talked about him on Friday. He was the topic of existence for on the Real Talk Fins Talk. Let's step back a little bit. 2020, who was your quarterback you wanted when they tanked, and they obviously didn't tank because they won 5. Yeah. Who was the quarterback you were looking at 5?
Tua.
Okay, why?
I thought that because he won a lot in Alabama meant a lot. And I knew that if he could get through the hip thing, that he could be special. I didn't realize they were going to kind of screw him around his rookie year when you pull him in a game. That completely turned me off of Flores when you're, putting him in a game and then pulling him out and then putting, what's his name back in the game.
Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick. And then, just doing that several times like that'll kill, as a new head coach coming into a team, you shouldn't have to convince your star quarterback that he's a good quarterback, and it just seemed like that's kind of what happened under Flores is he didn't want him. But I liked Tua enough. And had they gone, one of the other ones, I would have been fine with that as well. Like my expertise isn't quarterbacks, isn't that because because it's kind of like it's happening right now with Bryce Young. Yeah. They're all saying that he's too small, he's not, and nobody, they're making it seem like nobody wants to touch him at all. And he could be really special. Like, you just never know.
No.
Like I've always felt like with the draft, a quarterback is going to be as good as the coaching staff around him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, like, the Cleveland Browns have struck out so many times at quarterback because they're always near the top of the draft. They're always just kind of taking, trying to think that they've got the best quarterback, and then you put them with a bad coaching staff, and they just kind of fall apart. So
look at Trevor Lawrence last year, right? You put him with an offensive guy, and exactly. It's gonna be all the difference in the world, right? If you put yourself in the right situation. Right. And for me, there's only certain quarterbacks in the league that come around once every some odd years. But even look this year, the quarterback that everyone wants, Aaron Rodgers. Look what happens when he loses his weapons.
Yep.
If you don't put weapons around the quarterback,
exactly. Yep.
You're not going to succeed. So overall, were you, from what you saw from Tua this year, negating the injuries like for me, and we're going to talk about other positions which you know a lot more about as well. Were you satisfied from what you saw from him in the games that he was in that he's capable of doing even more next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do. If he stays healthy, and to me, that is the question mark, right? That's where, you know, when I do my mock drafts and I'm talking about Hendon Hooker at 51, it's just because like I'm nervous about the staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, I think he showed me enough this year, you know. And then you bring in that Fangio defense, you know, I think we'll be sitting pretty. I don't like giving up on quarterbacks, but at the same time, like at some point you've got to pull the Band-Aid off. So we got to.
Would you, because I have his number back and I know they talked about it in the last show, really quick question. Based on his injury history though, knowing what could come this year, he's up to, he'd get to $9 million. Which I would, but let's see how you would feel. Would you sign him to the 5th-year option to cover yourself at $23 million, or would you take a chance, and if he balls out, then you might be stuck closer to 40 next year? If you have to resign, if you have to find some time to a long term, you'll probably be closer to 40.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to see it, you know, before you. I completely understand the pay of it, and you might have to pay him more. But if he goes into next year and he gets hurt after the season and he's out and you don't make the playoffs, whatever, like I can't see, you know, giving him a long-term contract after that. Okay. But that's just, you know, again, that's.
Well, who would you? The other top, I completely understand. Who would you? Because the last 2 years hasn't really worked out with the backups they brought in, these veteran backups. What would you do with the backup position this year? Like, who would be your target? A draft pick, or would you play behind him and put Skyler number 3? Would you trust Skyler to be number 2, or what type of backup would you go get for this upcoming season?
That, I guess, is finding out what quarterbacks are available and which ones are looking at being.
Are you looking at a Gardner? Would you look at a Gardner Minshew or Mitch Trubisky, like a guy who can come in who has started before, or are you looking more for? Because the one thing we learned last year, which was the struggle, is that we couldn't adjust to the quarterback that came in could not do what Tua was doing when he was at a high level, obviously.
Right. And I think that's where, you know, the I don't necessarily want to say brilliance of Mike McDaniel, but I feel like, you know, now that he's had the year, finding somebody that he's comfortable with in that, you know, in that backup position, whether it be, you know, you want somebody like, you know, like Chad Henne was with Kansas City, where Mahomes gets hurt, he can come in and he, you know, he rolled every time he came in for Mahomes. It was beautiful. You know, like it was like they didn't miss a beat.
No, it's amazing. That's Andy Reid. That's Andy Reid, right? That's just amazing.
Right, yeah.
We hope we can get there. Yeah, I agree. Tyler Heineke would be great. For me, I just want a quarterback. I feel that we need a quarterback who has the exact same skill set as Tua, in the sense that they're pocket passers, they're anticipatory quarterbacks who all you need to do is get the ball in your weapon's hands and let them do the work. That's what you need to do. But by the way, Dolphins Thursday talked about like Dan Fowler, about the Chargers. Yeah, the Chargers haven't won anything. They're going to choke everything. Yeah. That's just the Chargers MO, going back to Stan Humphries even.
Yeah. So when you sit here and you listen to Chargers fans talk about how awesome their quarterback is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't won anything.
No, and also not even that. I'm not comparing. What I noticed though is, if you remember, and I'm going to tell, I was very clear as day as this. His season only turned around when he faced the Dolphins that game. He had not been playing well the previous games. Right. What happened? He had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams back.
Yes.
And then the moment Mike Williams went back, got hurt.
Yep.
In the last game of the season, stupid of Staley to play him. He was not. Justin Herbert did not have a great game against Jacksonville. So the moment you lose your key weapon, you're going to struggle. It happened with Aaron Rodgers. It's going to happen unless you're the upper echelon quarterback, until you become a Patrick Mahomes. And like I said, for me, the reason why I think Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers became so great and Tom Brady became so great is you need to develop your quarterback and let them learn behind veterans, and that's how you become great, and that's how you're going to do it. So, so now let's move on to the running back position. Because right now we have an empty running back room in this upcoming season. Do you want to bring any of them back? Do you want to get someone from the draft? Do you want to go get a quarterback? You want to go get a running back off point? Like, what do you think is best for the Dolphins? I know we've talked about running backs during the draft, but who you think the Dolphins should take during the course of the draft? But what do you feel is best for this team as a structure? What's the best scenario for you in that running back room?
I like Mostert, so I'd definitely keep him. And then I think you can find, again, there are some really, really good running backs that are going to be available late in the draft that I would love to.
Charbonnet's getting a lot of, I've been reading a lot about him. He's getting a lot of push. He's moving up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like so I saw somebody saying something about Derrick Henry, bringing Derrick Henry. No. That's so much money on a running back that,
but that's not Mike McDaniel either way.
Right. Exactly. I think he does more with less, in opinion.
Even when he was in Denver, even when he was in Atlanta, even when he was in Houston, there was no bell cow running backs there.
Right.
They were all 2-3 running backs by committee. So for me, I would definitely. I think we need to get a Jeff Wilson type. If Jeff Wilson wants to come back on the cheap, great.
Right.
But I would go get a Rashawn Johnson. I'd go get a Sharp. You need someone who's a pounder, but also you need to have one thing you do need from that running back, I think. And I think you also talked about it during the show. We need a pass catching running back. That's not Mostert.
Yeah.
You need someone who's a pass catcher also, because who can run with the ball. That's one thing also. So for Noah Henry. Anyways, and I agree. Minshew, I would take. I just want someone who can fit into the scheme, who's a pocket passer. I just want an anticipatory thrower. On the wide receiver level, do you feel like I think it's we know who our 2 key members are. Would you bring back Sherfield of that quarterback room outside of our top 2? Who would you keep? Who would you bring back? Or who would you keep and who would you dump?
I like Sherfield enough as a number 3, and he may be the only one outside. Craycraft got some PT, but I'm not sold on him either. I would like to see what we can't get in the draft. I think, if you have an opportunity to draft skill players in the draft, you never know who's going to hit and who's not.
None of us have seen it. You notice that? Not one of us has picked a wide receiver in our mock draft. Not one of us.
Yeah. No, definitely.
I think we have to talk about that this week or something.
Yeah.
But would you? I would trade Zach. I would trade Cedric Wilson. I would do something with him, even if you could get a returner. Because I would even if that means you can get another 4th or 5th round pick and go find someone who could help in special teams or something like that. I would do that in a heartbeat. What about you?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do. There are some. I think there's 2 running backs that I was looking at when we did the running back mock, and I had found that are 4-2-3 guys that I would love to try and get one of those guys as a returner. Isn't that kind of how Tyreek started out, was as a returner and got himself into
like we've realized, and Steve made the great point, the draft is about developing players. Like right now, we know who our stars are. In that room, you need development. You don't need anything else. So at the tight end position, we all know where everyone feels about how they were utilized. It was a very underutilized position, but it's a position I think that was one of the key missing points of our offense last year that held us back. Where do you see it? Go get one or draft one? I know what I want, but what would you do?
I'm not sure. I haven't checked. I'm more focused on the draft, so I haven't really checked the free agency.
Hunter, what's his name? From Cincinnati, he's available. Not Hurts. What's his name? Jesus, speaker guy in the loudspeaker in my ear. Remind me. I'm gonna let you win one over there. If you were tell me who the tight end for Cincinnati was, who's a free agent. But would you go in the draft? Outside of Darnell Washington and Michael Mayer and that group, is there someone in the 3rd round? If Washington falls, is there anyone you saw in the draft that you think could start as a 3rd rounder? Because we went to get Hunter Long a couple of years ago, and he hasn't panned out just yet. So is there someone in the 3rd round that you think will be sitting there that if it was the right person that you would go draft outside of Washington? Because I mentioned Washington during our draft, mock draft, but if he moves up, is there someone who is a sleeper pick that you think that we should watch out for?
I think the kid from South Dakota State, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I didn't bring my notes with me to
don't
Tyler Kraft.
There you go. Tyler Kraft.
That's good. He's good for a couple things.
Yeah, that's Bobby's guy. Tyler. I do think he has a potential to be really good. So there, and then there's a kid from North Dakota State that I saw some potential with, and then there was Bobby had picked up late in the 7th round. He was also kind of like a fullback tight end.
Cameron Latou.
Yep, there you go. Yep,
he loves his draft stuff.
Yeah.
No, so we need a blocking tight end. But do you feel like Tucker Kraft that could be someone who could start day one for us?
Yeah, I mean, with the offseason, I mean
OTAs.
Yeah, OTAs and stuff. I think he's there. I mean, he may not be as big as Washington or Mayer, but give him a couple years. I think he's definitely got potential.
I made this comment a couple of days ago. Would you move up? If you see Washington falling into the second round and you're at 51 and it's getting to 40, 41, and you think that someone's about to take him, would you trade up to go get him? Is he that, based on your draft love, would you go get him? Like how much would you at what point, if you see him falling and you have a feel and you don't think he's going to get to 51, but he's still sitting there in the late 30s, would you go get him if he falls out of the first round?
I think I would. I think he has the potential to be that special.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Offensive line. Everyone wants to rip on the offensive line, but the one thing I would say, and everyone's mentioned it throughout the offseason, the Dolphins quarterbacks did not get pressured a lot last season. Right. There was a lot of the issues that happened with the offensive line, the quarterbacks, was the fact that they held onto the ball way too long.
Yep,
that was one of the key elements. So we all know who we all know who the stable elements are. It's Connor Williams, it's Teron Armstead, and it's Robert Hunt, and there's the two fill-in positions.
Yep.
What were your overall thoughts on the offensive line? Did you see growth in them? What year over year? And would you go? Here's a twofold question. What were your opinions on the offensive line? And next season, do you feel that would you keep Connor Williams at center, or would you move him to left guard and go find an actual center to solidify that? What would you do? What would you do with the whole offensive line? What would be your focus on that point for the Dolphins during the offseason?
Well, my first priority is right tackle because that's to his blind side. I think some people get it twisted and think needs a left tackle. The right tackle is his blind side, and so I feel like I want to get one in free agency, and hopefully it's McGlinchey. Yeah. I like Connor at center, and I think if he had another year there, it would pick up. I do feel like the offensive line was a little more productive than what we've had in the past, especially those games where Armstead was able to play. You could definitely see a huge improvement there. But once he goes down, and then you're having to patch up the line. You thought you had the right pieces, and then you put them in there, and you're like, well, that doesn't, like with Eichenberg. I love the dude out of Notre Dame, but he just hasn't performed, the way that I thought he would in the pros.
Do you think 2 years from now that Eichenberg and Jackson will be off this team, or do you see any hope for them?
Well, see, that's the thing. We'll get rid of them, and then they'll end up performing for Kansas City or somebody else. I mean, we've gotten rid of some bad offensive linemen in the past. They've ended up on teams, making deep runs in the playoffs. Yeah. So you're like, well, how come we couldn't get that out of it?
Well, maybe it's because let's be the positive, but hey, we're consistent. Yeah. At least one thing we're consistent about.
Consistent. Exactly.
We're consistent about getting a new offensive line coach every year. So we'll see about that one.
Well, I listened to his conversation with Florio, which normally I don't, but I did. And he said that the reason he had to get a new offensive line coach this year is because the offensive coordinator was spending too much time with the O-line.
Yeah.
And wasn't able to do things.
Yep.
You
have to remember, for me, I always joke around in the comments over the last couple of years. I always keep on picking on Coach Lem. You want to know what? You had a very inexperienced guy 2 years ago, a couple of years ago. And then you kept him, and then you went to go get another guy. Yeah. So for me, I think Frank Smith was basically the offensive line coach. And basically McDaniel was the offensive coordinator. Yeah. And that was always one of my harps last year. Yeah. I love the offense, but I think that there was a disjointedness. So if you went to go, you want to know what? The guy might have sucked, but you want to know what? Maybe in this team he'll fit well. It's all about a coaching staff is a team just as much as the on the field. They all have to work in unison, and if there's a disjointed element to it, it's gonna falter.
I agree.
Daniel has experience with this guy, and he believes he's the right guy. We have to believe in that, right?
Yep. And and like I said, again, in my opinion, draft picks are all about coaching. And if this guy is able to, work on the, Eichenberg and the Jackson, he may be able to get something out of him that nobody else has been able to. And that's kind of,
And also, you want to push to Brandon Shell. Let Brandon Shell be our backup.
Brandon Shell, yeah.
Because you have key pieces. You have Brandon Shell. You have Robert Jones. Like, you have players like that who could do the job if we need to.
I actually like Robert Jones was impressed with Shell in the games that I saw him play. So I definitely think that he's a
he came off the street. He was great. I think he did his job. Greg Little, for us, we know who the difficult people. It's Greg Little, it's Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg. They have a lot to prove during training camp, and we'll see what happens. But we know that we're not picking up Jackson's option. I couldn't believe it. Like, if you pick up Jackson's option, it's close to $14 million. Like, no one's touching that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Keep them as backups. Yeah, you're right. And Darnell Washington is the man. Now, guys, we're 41 minutes into the show. It's been great so far. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the defense. The defense may have not shown the high level on paper. I think, but what did you like about the defense, and what has you excited about the hiring of Fangio with the key pieces, and what element of the defense, which we've talked about on the draft shows also, but where do you think the key needs are based on the way Fangio runs his defense? Like, what do you think will allow us to get this defense into the top 10 next year?
What do I like about the defense? I felt for some reason they seemed to play well at home, and didn't show up very, very often on the road.
Except the playoff game, they busted their butts.
They really did. What do I like about Fangio? I mean, what's not like? He's always had an elite defense. Yeah. I think that we need to find some linebacker depth and safety depth. And the thing that is different than what Boyer does is he only blitzes out of necessity. I felt like last year, 2021, I felt like it was Flores running the defense anyway. So when you're one of those, when you see them run the zero coverage under Flores, it looked completely different than what Boyer did it. And so that
Boyer tried to change it up, but he tried to keep the same idea as Flores, but tried to tweak it a little too much, but he tweaked it a little too much.
And then, like on third and long, the middle of the field would be wide open as he's.
Do you remember that play?
Oh my God, yeah.
Line up
and it just gave me nightmares. Yeah. And that's where I feel like with Fangio's experience that he's kind of got things running in the right direction. Everybody, okay, back up, get out of here.
She's welcome anytime. The children are allowed on the show. It's PG, it's under PG-13. We're all good.
There you go. And so he's been successful wherever he's been. So we're not going to have. Under Fangio's defense, I don't think we're going to have to score 32 points a game. Where it felt like this year, like we were literally playing, playing tag. Oh, I scored, now you scored. And then, like against Chicago, against the Bears, like I didn't think that game should have been that close, but you just have kids kind of going crazy. So I think he's going to bring that. You definitely need, your cornerbacks and your safeties to be able to tackle in space. And, that's why you got to love Javon Holland. Like the dude's a baller. I think he got snubbed out.
Proud Canadian also. Proud Canadian, by the way.
Yeah.
From BC.
So, yeah. I'm definitely excited to see the defense this year.
Okay. What do you feel like? Because of his defense, we don't need to have the two stout corners and don't have to go after a Jalen Ramsey, or don't have to go would you focus more on maybe going to get a Poyer and maybe solidifying the safety position more than, and you think Gohu did what he needed to do and bring back Needham, or what do you think works well for the secondary next year, and Sam Madison in that group? And
I would.
What's his name? The guy from LA that they just got, Ronaldo Hill.
Yeah, I would love to get Poyer. I think Poyer's plays well back there, and kind of, use him as the captain of the backside of the defense, and then find a little bit of more depth in the draft.
Would you use Brandon Jones, like I mentioned in previous shows? Like, would you use him more like as a linebacker than as a safety if they were able to sign a Poyer? Like maybe use him a little differently.
Yeah, you could use him as a linebacker, outside linebacker time, rush him off the edge.
Yeah,
I definitely think there's I definitely think there's a place for him if And again, like Fangio said, like he's like I haven't
judge anybody.
Yeah, he's like every position is up, and
except Landon Roberts, you can go to Minnesota and handle it full. Like anyone who can't any linebacker who can't cover for his life, you can mosey on off the team.
Yeah.
But no, but we all think. I think though that it all starts on the defensive line. Like if you have a healthy Chubb, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips, like those five. Like if that all starts there, if those people come back balling, everything else
they'll get after it.
Yeah, we have to get to the quarterback. That's the key thing for us. We have to get to the quarterback. So, one player I was hard on last year. What were your thoughts on our kicker? What do you think? I made a joke that this is the day he figures it out and he won't miss another one until he missed one in the playoff game. Besides that, what were your thoughts on Jason Sanders? Were you at a point where it was time to go bring in another kicker? Or do you believe that wasn't so important? What are your thoughts on that one?
No, I feel like over the last 2 years that he's missed more than he's made. That's what it feels like. I don't know if
over 50.
Yeah, just like kicks that you think that. Previously he had in the back pocket, he was, and then some of the shanks were so bad.
Yeah.
I was shocked. Yeah. I'm not a huge Sanders fan, but I don't know what else you're going to do.
Yeah. Were you surprised that they kept Crosswood?
I was, because I didn't feel like special teams was that special.
Yeah. Well, I felt like, for me, one positive I took on it was the fact that I think Ethan Carter was a big loss.
Yeah.
And I think that Fejelim, like having to play multiple positions, I think the key thing is that it all starts with the kick return. Like the fact that you knew every time the ball was being kicked off, that we could not get field position and they were going to call fair catch.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing we ought to talk about, which I'd love for everyone to talk about during the draft show. Is like is there a returner or just we need to? I think that special teams is important for us. Like that was I think that cost us games last year.
Yes, I agree.
It was momentum swingers.
Yep. You got other people. You got other returners returning the ball to the plus 40, and now you're on a 40-yard field as opposed to an 80-yard field. Like
if we recall, the reason why they won that Super Bowl is this because they had Tony on that team. Kadarius Toney was the biggest deal.
Yeah.
Like look what he did. Look at the dual threat kind of guy he is. You need that. You need a guy who can play backup receiver, but Cedric Wilson doesn't have that skill set. Jakeem Grant had that skill set. Yeah. You needed someone like that who can change the game on a dime and give you field position.
Exactly.
That you can get down the field. Because the one thing I've realized during the last season is we did not have a lot of sustained drives. It was always quick drive, and we didn't dominate field position. Like there was a joke. I made a joke once of how, I think it was the 13-14 game of the year. At one point, the defense had been on the field for one complete game more than the offense because the defense were always on the field. We have to have a more balanced attack. Across both sides of the ball.
I'm all for scoring, but when especially in that South Florida heat, your defense is out there longer than your offense. That's going to end up leading to problems. So
what are your thoughts overall on the overall coaching staff, Mike McDaniel, how they performed in year one? Not how the season was, but like for me, like I've been the number one harper about buying everyone time X's on the network because can't tell time.
Yeah,
he's always essential. Like, do you feel like they've now solved that problem by having Fangio, and they've been the fact that they've now solidified him with somebody who he can basically bounce ideas, who's a veteran head coach, who's been in the league for as long as the guy's almost been alive? Like, do you feel that that's going to really allow him to grow much faster? Like, instead of just hire, I feel like if they would have hired a Sean Desai or they would have hired a young guy who was developing, that would have been more difficult of an adjustment for McDaniel. But now that he has that guy who's no nonsense, who's focused on winning, the fact that who chose us over Sean Payton, like, do you feel that will allow Mike McDaniel to grow faster than he would have not having a more younger defensive coordinator there?
Absolutely. I think that, I think he will help McDaniel in those areas that McDaniel wasn't very good at this year. So, I'm a high school coach myself, and we always talk about, who do you surround yourself with? Do you want experienced guys or do you want brand new guys? It might be nice to have some youth movement here and there, but as far as, if you're bringing in coaches and McDaniel, like if we couldn't get Fangio, I definitely wanted somebody who has had head coach experience and also a defensive coordinator that can help him kind of in those moments that he didn't kind of stunk it up for whatever reason. But I definitely feel like it's a step in the right direction bringing Fangio in. I think Fangio will definitely help him in those.
Yeah. Are you a believer in Chris Greer, or are you a guy who's like saying, what's he still doing as our GM?
That's a good question. Like that, for so long, I was anti Chris Greer, but there are a bunch of picks that he's gotten right recently. Like with Javon Holland and
he
Christian
had Minka,
Wilkins.
Like he had Minka, he had Wilkins.
Yeah. So do we still have Minka if Flores is never the coach?
Probably.
Was that the issue? Is that
Flores for sure? Because he tried to play him safety. He wanted to turn him into a corner versus a safety. Like he couldn't decide what position he was playing. Right? Like that was he tried. That's what we always do on this team. We try to fit square pegs into round holes, and that's just not what it works. Right? You have to stick with where the guy is best at. Like it turned out, it worked out a little bit for Connor Williams. He had his yips, but. It is what it is. It happens. It is what it is. They felt that we really need to solidify that position, and you want to what you have to take for what it's worth. He overall in terms of his blocking, in terms of that, like he was decent. So what if you had to pick one player for Chris Greer? Because Chris Greer is not afraid to make a splash. Is there someone? You are saying that this is the missing link, not the draft, because we're going to save that for Friday. Is there a free agent right now you're seeing? You talked about Poyer. Who is the number one target for you in free agency? At what position? And who in your eye is like a player you say that you know of that you would say, this is the guy we need to just take us to that next level? Is it McGlinchey? Is it Poyer? Is it Bobby Wagner?
I would say if he's able to get McGlinchey at right tackle, that would be huge. And then defensively, if he could, get Poyer, I think that would help a lot on defense as well. So,
you think you can get the linebacker in the draft? You think you can get the linebacker in the draft?
I think you can. I think you can. I really like, again, like I've said many times, Jack Campbell out of Iowa. I watched more from today, and I like what he does. So there's several. There's a kid from Alabama that might be available in some of the later rounds too. That's potential there.
Do you think? But last year, because you were still into the draft, I'm sure last year.
Yep.
What do you think it is? Do you think Tyndall has a place on this team and could start, or do you feel he's just a depth piece because he couldn't find his way onto the field this year?
I think. You see what Fangio sees in him. I think you bring in Fangio. And
what did you think of him when you picked him? Did you like the pick, or you didn't like the pick at that point?
I was okay with it. I wasn't like, woo, because I knew that he was part of that Georgia defense that was pretty stout, but I didn't feel like he was the key piece of it. So when we signed him, like I was like, this has potential of being good. We just need to be able to see. And so, some of the guys that flashed under Boyer may not flash under Fangio, and you might get some of those guys, that we're not talking about or didn't get much playing time that end up playing well for Fangio.
Okay. What are your overall? If you had to pick, so you're right now for the upcoming free agency. Now you start to see cuts happening. They've already predicted cuts. Is your main focus O-line? If you had to pick three key signings, which positions would they be in free agency? Like, well, not the draft, we're doing the draft, but what would be your three key signings in the agency? Would it be safety, O-line, and where else? Where else would it be?
O-line's always number one in my book. And then I think if you could get a stud linebacker in free agency, and then
but you wouldn't overpay there. You wouldn't go. Would you break the bank on Edmonds, or you leave it there?
I don't know. See, that's the thing, man. If you can start to cripple Buffalo,
anything to cripple Buffalo, the Jets, and the Patriots.
Right? Yeah, I mean, for real. Like, I don't understand. Like times where we will just like cut a player or trade them to the Patriots, whatever. Like
Devontae Parker.
I'm not all about doing business in the thing. So if they're free agents and you can take that away from Buffalo, I don't know why. Like if you're able to get him or Poyer or both, I think there's a strong possibility Miami runs that division next year.
Okay.
If two
guys, okay, great. Guys, we're coming up to the hour. We're going to cut it off because I don't want to start getting screamed out of my ear that it's supper time. But
that's right.
Guys, it's been phenomenal to be with you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As we head out, I want to know, because we had mentioned you've been to the Orange Bowl. Have you been to many? I didn't ask this question earlier. Have you been to? When's the last time you were at Hard Rock? When's the last game you saw live? The Dolphins game that you saw live?
It was back when Jake Plummer was the quarterback in Carolina. And we got our seats were way up in the nose.
If you haven't been to a Dolphins game yet, that money long?
Yeah, I don't. They don't come around.
But you haven't gone to Hard Rock.
I've never been there, but we're planning. My buddy, who's a huge Giants fan, we're planning on going this year to Hard Rock.
That's a stadium, I'm telling you.
For the Dolphins.
Make sure you sit on the Dolphins side, eh?
The Dolphins side where it's shady.
Yeah, you always make sure of that. No, it's a great place. Hopefully we'll all meet up. We're all going to try to find. That's a network. We all have to find the time to meet up, and hopefully this year will be the year. But but have you enjoyed your first show? You happy to be part of the bandwagon?
Dude, I love it, man. I love talking.
We're just going to talk to the Dolphins. Yeah. And you notice here, you get a lot of words in edgewise. We don't overcome you like on the draft show.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm a little quiet there. I lead the show. You just keep talking. No, but we're gonna have a lot of guys. We're gonna have a lot of great draft content because we're gonna be able to pick up on what's going on. I think we're gonna learn a lot this year because of what's happening in Indianapolis. There's the combine this week. We're gonna talk a little bit on the draft show. I'd love for Michael to give us some feedback next week on what he saw during the combine with the feedback you're getting from all the coaches and what you thought meant for the Dolphins, like who stood out that we haven't talked about during the draft as well. We'll also talk about it, guys. We have great content going on this week. I'm not sure what shows are happening this week since it's the off season. You never know. So I'll let, but I'm sure Fast Break is happening. You always have Real Talk, Fins Talk. We have the wrestling show, No Holds Bar. I'm sure it's coming up tomorrow. After Fast Break, that's usually what happens on Wednesdays. Thursdays, you never know if Huddle Up and Wait is coming. You never know with those two guys, but it's a lot of fun. Bottom Up, Fins Up will show up again at some point. And then you have Fins Talk today on Saturday. And obviously on Friday night, you're going to see Michael and I again, along with Bobby, probably Brett, Dave. We're all going to be on. You might see Wingate again. We're going to do the draft show. We have a lot of stuff planned for there. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Fins Up, guys. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining the show, Steve. Thirsty. We love you guys. It's great. We hope to have Anthony on next week. Anyone who wants to join, we're going to drop the link every week. And if you want to come in and talk Dolphins, only positive Dolphins, or you can rip any other team in the league. That's what we do here. We only focus on positive Dolphins. I hope to get an A+ from the producer. I did not say one negative thing about the Dolphins. One negative thing. Guys, once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And always, Fins Up, guys.
That's right, baby. Fins Up.